Hello, I'm Shumi Nagaremono, the hobby drifter, and I've been a fan of Transformers for a long time. The first one I got was a jump starter, back when I was only 3 years old, and I still have it, packed away somewhere in my parents' attic. While I've got nothing against the newer Transformers series and toy lines, I prefer collecting the figures that I wanted as a kid, which is pretty much just G1. But when I heard that for the first time in a while, there was going to be an entire subset of mainline figures, completely new molds that were going to be exclusive to Japan, I couldn't resist. Until I saw the price. I get that being exclusive to Japan means that the production run for these figures is much lower than usual, and granted, they're not BotCon exclusive type expensive, but Kenzan is 5,775 yen, and the other two, Jinbu and Ganoh, are 3,675 yen each. That's 13,125 yen, tax included. That's more than Jetwing Prime cost at most retailers. But Toys R Us sucked me in. They had Kenzan O on display, and it looked much better than in any pictures I'd seen. Plus, the first week of release, all Transformers Go figures were 20% off. Plus, there was an in-store coupon for an additional 500 yen off. And buying the set got me 3 bonus Micron accessories. When all was said and done, the whole set only wound up costing about 9,000 yen. Toys R Us is great for things like this with Transformers. The first week of a big release, they'll usually have that 20% off sale, and fairly often, they'll also throw in a little bonus figure, a Micron or Legends class repaint, something like that. If you can get to a TRU on the week or day of release, I'd recommend doing your Transformers shopping there. If not, places like Yodobashi or Bic are usually cheaper. 3 Japanese exclusive Transformers. Man, my 10-year-old self is already excited.
Here is the Samurai team and their packaging. The blue helps them fit in well with the rest of the Transformers Go toy line. There's a lot going on with these boxes. The Transformers Go logo is there, plus the figure's name. There's pictures of each figure in both robot and vehicle modes, plus different combined forms. The combiner helmets, or kabutos, are clearly visible in the windows of each package. Nowhere is there a really good shot of any of the combined robots, which should have sent up a red flag, but we'll get to that later. Inside, we see something that made me very happy. A return to the old school, well, late 90s and early 2000s, plastic trays. Cut 1 piece of tape to open the box, slide out the tray. No futzing with 4 more pieces of tape, and not a single twist tie. These guys go from boxed to open in 5 seconds flat, and it means that you can choose to display your figures boxed even after you've opened them. For me, that's kind of a negative, since I usually just throw away the boxes. But for what seems to be literally every other adult collector, I don't see this being much of an issue. The paperwork is classic Transformers. Instructions, which are really easy to follow even if you can't read Japanese, an insert about current and future releases, the TakaraTomy website plug, and 3 different cards showing the figure in all 3 modes, depicted in Superlink-esque CG. Alright, enough gushing about the packaging. Now for the figures themselves. I've got to say, right off the bat, that I like these things. Yeah, a lot has been made about how they don't really have waists, and that's a valid criticism, but they're still really cool-looking figures with a lot of personality sculpted right in, and the lack of waists gives them some surprisingly good articulation. Kenzan is the leader of the samurai team. He's even got the classic samurai hairstyle. His robot mode kind of reminds me of Red Alert from Armada, but he's also got kind of a brave thing going on. I don't know if it's a direct homage, but since there are so many winks and nods going on with these figures, I wouldn't be surprised. Kenzan includes 2 swords, and his combined modes Kabuto can be mounted on the battery pack for some extra firepower. That battery pack, though, it's probably the reason this guy is so much more expensive than the other 2, and it doesn't really do much. A few basic sounds and light up sirens. Kenzan transforms into what you will never convince me isn't the car from RoboCop and the Ultra Police. I guess this is also Brave inspired, but I haven't drifted far enough into that series to know for sure. Yet. G02 is Jinbu, and he looks like he just stepped out of a machine robot rescue. He's got a very striking yellow, black, and gray color scheme, but I wish the gray was darker, like on the box. Armed with a huge sword made from incredibly floppy plastic, Jinbu gives off an Armada Starscream vibe. Jinbu transforms into a robot pretending to be a jet, carrying a huge sword on its back. It doesn't look bad, and it certainly doesn't look like many other Transformers, but it's got that whole disguise thing going for it. G03 is Ganoh, a big, beefy-looking bot. He reminds me of the auto rollers from G2. Red, black, gray, and thick as hell, this dude is really imposing. Although his face just screams big, friendly guy. This big, friendly guy could really benefit from wrist articulation to help with his weapon, which is maybe even more floppy than Jinbu's. Ganoh transforms into a brick with wheels, which I guess is supposed to represent an armored fire truck. I can kind of see it. Go Kenzan is the main combined form of the 3 samurai team members, and a whole lot has been said about how awkward this mode is. And, as you can see here, that's not entirely unfair. But, and this is really strange, if you look at the figure from a high angle, it looks pretty nice. Well balanced, the colors mix well. Although, the combined sword weapon is incredibly floppy, and the Kabuto weapon made up of the 2 unused headpieces looks like a pile of unused plastic parts. Good looking robot, especially if you're going to put it on a fairly low shelf, but the weapons don't add much. If you pick up the exclusive microns, they're really going to come in handy here. Go Jinbu is the second combined mode, and it is freaking terrible. Just completely and utterly abysmal. Every single thing about this is bad. Look at Kenzan as the legs. It looks like a robot ninja is crapping out Energon Prowl. Nothing is good about this form. That's probably why, even on its own box, nearly everything except the torso is obscured in some way. It is terrible in every conceivable way. Everything that anybody has ever complained about with every combiner from Devastator on up is well represented in this Gestalt form. If this was just another homage, an homage to everything bad about not only combiners, but Transformers in general, then mission accomplished. Not a fan. Last is Go Ganoh. This is probably my favorite of the combined robots from the waist up. Look at that. It's big. It's imposing. It's a gosh darn giant robot samurai. It's mostly red, black, and yellow, and really, how can you go wrong with those colors? The blue and white of Kenzan is mostly hidden in between Ganoh and Jinbu, and it just works. The legs are a bit skinny, but so what? So what is that those skinny legs are terrible at supporting the immense bulk up top. I didn't pose this thing in a more dynamic style to make it look cool. I did it because even without batteries, this thing laughed at me when I tried to get it to stand upright on my turntable. You would get Fortress Maximus to balance on top of the Master Sword before you got this thing to stand up straight. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's a really nice looking robot, and If you're a 10-year-old boy who just wants to slam it against Dragotron in your bedroom while making fight noises, then you should beg your parents to buy this for you. But if you're an adult collector who wants to stand it up straight on a shelf, then you're probably going to have a few complaints. It comes so close to being a must-buy that it pains me, literally pains me, to complain about it like this.
I'm sure that somewhere down the line this will wind up being repainted a few times over. We'll probably get the 3 members released in a uniform color scheme, possibly more than one. I wouldn't be surprised if we get an all-black version, maybe as a con exclusive. Maybe then TakaraTomy will do something about the floppiness of a few of the pieces. And even with my few complaints, I'll probably buy them, because they are some really nice Transformers. They're fun, and they attempt things that have never been done before in the Transformers toy line. Maybe I'm being a bit too easy on them, what with getting them for a decent price, and maybe I'd be less forgiving if I paid like $200 to import them, but I appreciate how much work went into these things. How the designers tried something completely new while seemingly throwing out homages left and right. It's nice to see a major exclusive that's more than just a repaint or a few extra paint apps. I'm Shumi Nagaremono, the Hobby Drifter, and even with their few flaws, messing around with the Autobot Samurai team was some happy hobbying.